you'll see I'm wearing gloves here, so that leads me into the next thing. We will be using some cleaning fluids. Be very careful what you clean this thing with, because you can craze the plastics, you can destroy irreplaceable parts that you can't get spare parts for this because it's 45 years old. So I tend to limit myself to relatively harmless chemicals, but I still put on gloves because they're quite aggressive stuff. But windoline, benzene or carbon tetrachloride, which you may or may not be able to get in your country because this stuff's carcinogenic, so be careful. Metal polish, so panel beaters, rubbing compound to shine up metal things that have gone dull. You can even just use ordinary, I tend to use just brasso and silver. You may need to put a few drops of light machine oil in places. You can get Q20, it's in a spray can like this, but I don't recommend that because you don't want to spray oil all over the place. If you get oil on the rubber bands and the little idler wheels in this thing, it will destroy the rubber. It deconstitutes the rubber and it becomes a gooey, sticky mess. And those little wheels in this machine, there's no spare parts. So you know, for this machine, this knob here is not original. So I have to find the two control lever knobs. I've already located a machine that completely doesn't work to use to get some parts off. I have no idea, this machine could be as dead as a doornail, but it's definitely worth fixing. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get a warm, slightly damp rag. I'm going to have one rag that's just plain warm water and another rag that's got a little bit of sunlight, soap, detergent, whatever in it. Be very careful. When cleaning the fascia, you can remove the lettering, and that's a terrible tragedy because these machines look beautiful with all the lettering intact. So be careful. Do not use nail varnish associated stuff like acetone is deadly. If you have acetone in your workshop, go throw it away, because if it gets anywhere near this machine, it chews up the plastics, it removes the lettering, it's destructive. No lacquer thinners. Be careful, and if you're not sure, test somewhere where you can't see. On a corner, put a bit of whatever chemical there, but avoid the chemical. This thing can be perfectly cleaned up using just common household detergents. This is warm water, just water, and this has got a little bit of sunlight soap in it, and I'm just going to put a little bit of windoline. Windoline is quite a strong chemical, so literally just a drop. And there are a few active ingredients in windoline that are quite useful, but you don't want water running into the electronics and inside and everywhere, but you do need a little bit of moisture. And so we're just going to kind of do a little bit of wiping, and this is an initial clean. We're going to clean this machine several times, and we'll clean it when it's all together like this, but we'll also clean it when we have better access. We'll clean into the cracks and into everywhere. A paintbrush can be quite useful, but be careful, you don't want the paintbrush to be pushing a lot of water inside places. So yeah, and obviously a paintbrush, and I use blondies, and yeah, but the main thing is to clean it with a wrung out. You want to wring this cloth out quite thoroughly, and even right now there's quite a lot of moisture going on here, but we're not going to power this thing up. If you're cleaning up a very dirty piece of electronics and there's quite a lot of moisture in the process, like what I'm doing now, do not switch this equipment on for at least 24 hours, because you've got to give it time. If you live in a wet climate, maybe longer, but you've got to, there mustn't be any moisture on the machine when you power it up, because water and electronics, even though I'm using water as a solvent here to clean this machine, electronics really doesn't like water. don't use water if you intend to power up the machine. We're not going to power up this machine. These are the heads here. Be careful. It looks like there was a sticky labels stuck, but I'm sure you can see already a dramatic transformation in the appearance of this machine. These heads we're going to clean. They look like they might have seen a bit of wear and a bit of action, but not actually too bad. Already the machine is looking a lot better. This is a little plastic box, so we're just going to say Akai 4000 DS Mark II. And the purpose of this box is anything that comes off this machine. So these knobs, we're just going to remove them. Okay, and you want to keep everything in one place because you don't want to lose stuff. Now that's going to have to be stuck back on there. So the aluminum or aluminium surround has pulled off of the plastic, and here I'm using 2 fingers, so that's come off. This knob is not original, so it's got to go, and it's come off. It looks to me like it's come off a radiogram or valve radio, something like that. So we've taken off a few bits and pieces, and so we're just going to give it a little bit more cleaning. What you will notice is over here something was stuck on this machine and it's left a residue, and I normally remove that with warm water, with a bit of soapy water like sunlight, something along those lines. You want to be super careful. It's very tempting to use strong chemicals, but you don't want to do that because you can damage the lettering on the machine, and that will spoil the machine and probably ruin any chance of selling it, because collectible machines have to be in pretty good condition, especially in terms of the cosmetics, because you can always work on and replace and repair electronics is all hidden away inside, but the lettering is what the end user sees. And some people who buy these machines, they're not technicians, they just like and appreciate hi-fi equipment, and they're not going to buy it if all the lettering is smudged by strong chemical solvents. What I do find is reasonably safe, but test it on any surface before you actually do it, is a thing called benzene or carbon tetrachloride. When I lived in America, I noticed that you couldn't buy benzene, probably because it's carcinogenic. This piece actually screws off, and we're going to take it off and we're going to put it in our parts box, because we do not want to lose these parts. They're absolutely critical, because to get this metallic face, this face of this thing all screws off with these screws. You release these screws and this cover comes off, but you have to remove this first. And this is the Capstan, which regulates the speed of the tape, and we need to put a few drops of oil down there. And I noticed when I didn't force these. Don't force these before you've opened up and put a drop of oil in there and checked them, because you can break. There's a mechanism inside, it's a casting, and they are susceptible to breakage if you're rough. So don't use force, folks, don't use force. There's a little knob here that's missing, but that's not critical. And we're going to, oh, that's interesting. Normally they've got 2 little screws there, but this is quite nice. It's a slide-on one, so you can take it off easily to clean the heads. Don't go wild in here with water and damp and stuff. This brush is mostly dry, so we can do a little bit of dusting. But yeah, don't get water in here and down here. There's 2 coils here. This is your erase, your record, and your playback heads. And this is a selector where if you want to use this as a multi-track recorder or a stereo recorder, this is where you do the switching. And if you're not getting sound, you can have problems there. This one I'll probably unscrew it and put it into the sink full of water, soapy water, but for now I think this is quite a good cleaning. It's not the last cleaning because we'll be repeatedly cleaning this thing, so I would not recommend you leave this detergent on. You put this on and then you wipe it away, and you wipe it away with these different cloths, because if you leave it on here it can bleach the front panel. This was our cloth that was just in plain water, so we're squeezing that out pretty thoroughly, and wow, look at that. That's done the job. This window leaner's got like ammonia and things. If you smell it, you can smell there's like chemical smells. So we now have to wipe this face and rinse out our cloth several times, okay? Because we do not want to come back tomorrow and look at this machine and discover that we've marred the face. But I think it looks quite fantastic compared to when we started. It's looking very exciting. I'm very excited. And luckily the machine was as dirty as it was, because if it wasn't, I probably would have had to pay more for it. Okay, this is jammed up as they do. So, and look how nice that thing has come up clean. It just unscrews. In fact, let me show you. It unscrews and there's a ball bearing, and you must remember, oh, look at that. That's interesting. This one has got a plastic bushing thing. Normally they have a bearing here, and maybe this is to stop the machine from screeching, because sometimes there's a bit of a screech can arise to do with this. So that's very interesting. I haven't seen that because I've worked on many 17 series and 4000 series decks, and they usually have a little ball bearing there. So that's interesting. I think the next time my other machine screeches with a tape, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off this machine, put it on that machine, and see if that solves the screech. And that can stay in place when we open up this whole thing. These switches, by the way, a lot of these switches could be crackly, and if they haven't been operated a long time, you need to do this to switches. Be careful not to crack and break the switches. Sharp impact often cracks and breaks plastics. But by doing this, and I'll talk to you about these controls are also quite important, but these controls, sometimes just by operating them like this, you can get good results. This is a very important one. It switches between monitoring the tape, monitoring the source. This is where you can check the quality of your recording, where you're switching between the source and what's just been recorded, because it goes, the tape travels this way and it erases, it records, and it plays, and it can play and record simultaneously. And that's why when you're looking for a machine like this, you've got to count and make sure it's got at least 3 heads. If it's an auto reverse deck, and the other one that I showed you in my part 1 of this series has got 6 heads, so it can record and play back in both directions. But sometimes you see machines that are 5 heads, so it'll play in both directions, but it can only record in one direction. Grab those machines. 2-head machines where the record and playback head are combined, they're okay, but yeah, you're never going to get the sound quality out of those that you'll get with one of these. And that's what makes the 4000 series Akai's very, very special.